Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for that lovely prayer, Reverend Susan. That's beautiful. I never heard that one before. So today we have Mark Duvall with us, who is going to be talking about outreach and mission, and a little bit about the retreat when they went down to help out this summer. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark to share his presentation with us. Mark?
Great, thank you. So let me share my presentation. Can everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Great. So those who know me know that I can talk all day, but I'm going to try to keep this brief. And if you all have questions while I'm speaking, just feel free to call them out, and I'll do my best to answer the questions. So the first thing up front, I just want to let everybody know, you hear my name a lot. And on one hand, that's neat, and I appreciate it, but I try to remind everybody all the time that at least at St. Peter's in the Woods, mission and outreach is a team sport. We have people who will never have an opportunity to go where members of the mission outreach team go who are supporting mission outreach. We have people who choose to share their time, talent, treasures in other ways that many people at the parish don't even know towards mission and outreach. So I like to start by reminding everybody that I call it a team sport, that it's not one individual, it's not two or three, it's a whole parish. And if we're not doing it as a whole parish, I don't believe that we're doing it right. When I was younger, I tried to get into mission outreach, and I think the idea was I was too young. That belief I don't hold. I'll take anybody who's willing to help out, helping others, because that's what I think that we're called to do. So just up front, just a reminder, it is a team sport. So first up, Grace House on the Mountain. It's in St. Paul, Virginia. Some of you all know this, but for those of you who don't, or those who might be watching this at a later time, how did St. Peter's in the Woods and Fairfax Station end up partnering with Grace House on the Mountain in St. Paul, Virginia? Well, about 9.5 years ago, Reverend Deedy, now Bishop Deedy, brought together the people who were interested in mission outreach and challenged us to rethink how we looked at mission and outreach. She wanted to shake things up a little bit. So I remember vividly her drawing on a big easel pad these circles, and it went from local, regional, national to international in size of circles. And she asked people, wherever you feel called, go with that group and come back in 15 or 20 minutes and come up with ideas that you think that you would like to do. So I went with the regional group, and inside baseball, I had an idea in my head where I wanted to go. I wasn't going to show up without ideas, and had researched finding Grace House on the Mountain via the Diocese of Southwest Virginia. And 9.5 years later, we're still a partnership with that mission. They're out of the Diocese of Southwest Virginia. There was not a mission in Appalachia in the Diocese of Virginia. I think that everybody on the call is smart enough to figure out why that is. It's just geographic. But so that's how we got to where we are today. It's funny, every year though, someone will come up to me and they say, hey, where is it you guys go each year? So here's where we go. Up in the upper right hand corner, you can see the two little areas with the stars. The lower one is St. Peter's in the Woods. Down at the bottom in Southwest Virginia is Grace House on the Mountain. So it's about a 7.5 hour drive from where we are. You go all the way down to 81 to exit 12, and then you drive an hour west to get to Grace House on the Mountain. And so that's where we go every year. It's not close. It's not meant to be. It started as an idea to selfishly, how could we show our kids that there are people in need in Virginia? You don't have to get a passport to go overseas, but there's people right here in our state who are in need, and that's where we landed with Grace House on the Mountain. So one of the other questions is, well, where do you stay? And we don't stay in tents. It's not run down. It's actually a very, very nice facility. On the left here is is a photograph from outside. There are two bunkhouses. Each bunkhouse holds about 25 people. And very nice facilities, running water, electricity, the whole 9 yard. On our right is a photograph from the inside. It's quite funny that the photograph has this potbelly stove because we go in August. So we don't ever use the potbelly stove. There is no air conditioning, so we only use the fans. And this past year, it was pretty wet down there and humid. So nothing really ever dried out. But we do have these wonderful bunks to sleep in that treat us well after a long day of work. So we're not roughing it. I don't want to mislead anybody and think that we are roughing it while we're down there. But that's the facilities that we stay in. So one of the wonderful benefits of going on these trips is when you're walking out the door, people hand you cash and say, hey, if you need anything, pick it up. Well, we did. We bought more school supplies, and we bought it down there in Abington once we got off 81. And we intentionally did that because we didn't think that the big box stores in Fairfax needed any more of our money, but that part of the state did need our money. So we went to the grocery store in Abington, and we bought all of their school supplies, as you can see there from the carts. But then the question is, where do we put it all? Because we already had our cars packed. And the answer was, we just packed it around the people in the cars. So this is Chris Camilla's son, Sam, who was a godsend to have on the trip, and was very, very amenable to not having anybody sitting next to him, although he was packed with a very large cooler, probably about 100 backpacks and countless glue sticks. So we do maximize the space that we have to get ourselves down there, to get everything to Grace House on the Mountain. So when we were down there, our big task this year was building a ramp. Up here in Northern Virginia, you go to build something, and there's all these rules and regulations about how you build it, what it looks like, whether the neighbors are going to be irritated by it. Down in Southwest Virginia, it's not that way. It's literally, there's a need, let's fill the need. So everything is custom down there. This was Chris Camilla's husband, Chuck, who was cutting away part of the house to make sure that the ramp could actually sit flush against the back of the house. The project this year was a ramp for an elderly couple who the woman's husband was homebound because he could not get out of the house. He was in a wheelchair, and they had no way to get him out of the house to any doctor's appointments. She was actually also in the process of getting ready to have knee replacement surgery. So their need was a ramp. So this is the side of the house, their back door. It's not ADA accessible, but we do the best we can to make sure that when push comes to shove, you can get somebody from where they are to where they need to be. So everything down in Southwest Virginia is custom. They're one of a kind. You won't see another one like it. And we've gotten actually pretty good at coming up with how to do something custom. So in order to build this ramp, we had to dig holes. And for anybody who's spent any time in this area in their backyard digging in the dirt, you know that it's actually clay. And you tell everybody how hard it is to dig in Northern Virginia. Well, let me tell you, you don't know what it's like to dig until you've dug in Southwest Virginia down near the coal mines, because you dig just below the dirt and you get hit, you get coal and you get slate and shale. And so we actually brought in an auger this year. The auger actually only went down about a foot, and we had to dig the rest of it by hand. But this was Reverend G, Tim Ashmore, and Lynn Leroy working out, trying to figure out how to build dig these holes right next to the side of the house. Reverend G had never touched an auger before. He didn't even know what an auger was, but he was willing to jump in. We told him, hold on tight, because the thing will rip your arm out of your socket if you don't hold on tight. He did, and it was a big help to get these holes dug. So this is a view from the street, looking down to the door at the far end is where you saw Chuck actually cutting away part of the house. We had to dig 16 post holes. So this was us getting the post holes laid out. and made sure that we had them all lined up, kind of fighting the elements, because just as soon as we did this that night, it started to pour rain. So the next morning, our holes were a little different shape than they were when we left them. But nonetheless, we were, everything did stay that it was the way that it was. Fortunately, again, because it's that rocky ground down in Southwest Virginia, it's not like there was a big mudslide. There was honestly not that much mud. So here is the finished product. Again, you can see a little swerve in the wood. This type of ramp would not have passed any type of thumbs up in North Virginia. It probably would have been had some homeowners asking to have it ripped out. But in Southwest Virginia, this was a godsend. And we took the ramp actually all the way to the street, right through the fence. We did put the fence gate back on, but this now allowed the family to get out of the house. The house, I don't have a full picture of the house, but that's about one half of the house that you see there. The family the husband and wife had just moved in about 2 months ago. The cost of the house was $1,000. By my estimation, the phone in my pocket is worth more than that house. That ramp that we built is worth more than that house. But that house was a huge upgrade from the house that they were in, because the house they were in, the ceiling was falling in and the floor was collapsing. So she was very prideful of the house that she had, and was very taken back by the work that we did to enable her husband, and her also to get out of the house safely. Both of their daughters came by and saw us working, and very modest group of people down in Southwest Virginia. They're touched by the work that you do, but they're also very prideful. So they don't say a lot, because they want to be able to do work to help you out. In this case, her smile was enough to keep us going when it was really hot or when it was raining. But that was the completed project, thanks to all of the work that was done by everyone at St. Peter's in the Woods, from donating money to donating food to keep us going, to prayers to make sure everybody came home, especially Reverend G with 10 fingers. We were able to get the ramp done. So that was our project this year at Grace House on the Mountain down in Southwest Virginia. The actual area that we worked was in Daint. And I have to catch myself when I say that, because if you were up in Northern Virginia, you would call it Daint. It's not Daint, it's Daint. It's the old coal mining area in Southwest Virginia. And right behind the house is a creek, or I guess down there it would be called a creek. And a beautiful area, but nonetheless, we were happy to leave there knowing that this husband and wife had a means to get out of the house, to get to doctor's appointments, and to see friends. I'll pause there. Any questions about Grace House on the Mountain?
Mark, can you tell us, Grace House, do they have a certain number of families they serve, or are they serving the whole community?
They actually serve. They are a mission that is set up to serve that whole area. So they serve Wise County, St. Paul, Daint, and a couple of the neighboring counties. To include, actually, this year they were being called upon by people from Eastern Kentucky who had just been flooded out, and there were people from Eastern Kentucky who were leaving there and enrolling their kids in school in St. Paul and in Wise County. So to know that our backpacks and school supplies went to people that we didn't even plan on helping, but these families who were either homeless or living in hotels, but making sure their kids were in school. Grace House on the Mountain welcomed that population as well, to help out. But on a yearly basis, the director and her husband go out and they take applicants. Let me back up. They take applicants every year. It's all through basically word of mouth, that such and such is down on their needs, and they need a ramp, or this family need their floor has fallen in. They need the floor replaced. Anita, the director at Grace House on the Mountain, and her husband Jerry will go to each of these houses and do an assessment, and they will determine whether A, the house is first safe to work in, and B, whether the job is something that they can do. There are a lot of ramps being done now down, but there are also a lot of roofing work, which we stay away from after our first year at Grace House, where the roof is, let's just say, it's a different skill set to do roofing work. So we've done a lot of ramps, we've done a lot of flooring work, painting and cleaning, but they'll do an assessment, and in January we will, all of the partners with Grace House, that being St. Peter's in the Woods, one of them, will get a Word document, and the Word document has, last year, let me think, it was probably 10 pages with about 10 families apiece on this list, and it just went house after house after house, and you pick a house that you think that your group can work on, and they do this year after year after year.
So in these missions, are they always requiring some type of manual physical labor? Are there other types of activities or needs to be fulfilled?
From Grace House, it's always manual physical labor, because the people the people they serve are, and their work is for those who can't do for themselves what needs to get done. So there are other organizations down there that provide food. There's other organizations that provide amenities. But the other part that Grace House does is they actually, some of the money that we pay for the ability to go is put towards keeping people's utilities on. So if someone's down on their finances for the month or so, and down in that part of the area, when it gets cold, it gets really cold, Grace House will help to keep their electricity on. So there is some of that compassion care, but for the most part, from about April until about September, it is all straight manual labor. And there's organizations as far as upstate New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, and Virginia, who all come to Grace House every year to help out.
You know what, Mark, I just add, because I've gone a couple times, and there were some ladies who came one year who were older than the young people doing a lot of the work, and there were still things for everyone to do, because there could be painting, there could be cleaning something out. So even if I wasn't up on the roof per se, there were things that I could do as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. And
a range of physical stuff.
There are a range of physical, and we don't work fast. We actually make, and one of the things that we prided ourselves on from the beginning is ensuring that everybody gets an opportunity to learn. So we've had countless people who've come who've never picked up a cordless drill before, and or a saw, and they might be scared of it. And this is this is an opportunity for us to teach them how to use a new tool. And to see that self-confidence kind of exude from somebody who's never done that before, and then they step back and look at this picture and realize that they were a part of that when they thought, I don't think manual labor is really for me. You'd be amazed at what you can do. But yeah, thanks, Reverend Susan.
What's the minimum age for children?
Good question. The minimum age is well, let me back up. The preference is to have any children who go have their parent go with them. We've had a couple of exceptions where there have been a high school kid who's been 17 or 18 and really wanted to go, and we've had conversations with the parents, and the child knows that they're entrusted to us. But for the youngest kid that we've had go, let me do the backwards math. 18 minus 9 is 9, and that was actually my son Carter. But again, he was with me. So if we had a 9-year-old wanting to go, or a 10-year-old, as long as their parent was going, we would absolutely welcome them. And there would definitely be work that they could do. Carter learned how to paint with Lynn Leroy his first year there. I wasn't even helping him out. Lynn was over there teaching him how to paint. So there's work for all ages.
Sounds like it's a great opportunity, especially for teenagers to acquire some life skills that they may not have had while serving the community.
Yep, and the bonus is they get service hours, because if you go for a week at Grace House, you can fill your service hours for the whole year in that 1 week before school even starts.
Wow. The win-win-win all the way
That's
around.
right. Well, if there isn't anything else about Grace House, I'll move on here.
Okay.
So I'd be remiss if I actually didn't talk about the other part that we do. So this, for the past 2 years, through a partnership with the Lions Club and Gary Welschenbach's support, we were able to take backpacks and school supplies down for 100 kids. And we don't fill the backpacks ahead of time up here because it's a logistical nightmare to get it all down there. Instead, we take it down all unpacked. So one night we will fill the upstairs meeting area of Grace House with all the supplies, and we will continue to do this round robin of walking around, filling all the backpacks until we're done. And then any loose school supplies, we will actually donate to the local principals. So this was us this year. We had a good group going where we just kind of kept this train going around the tables until we got them all done. This was us at the school getting all set up. The school supplies right in the front were actually another organization. The second and the third tables were ours. This was at Castlewood Elementary in St. Paul, Virginia, and it was their back to school day, if you will. So it's the opportunity for the kids and their parents to come meet the teacher, figure out what elementary school looks like and where they're going. But at the same time, to a person, every single one of these kids was in need of school supplies. And the parents came up and were blown away at the generosity, couldn't believe that we'd come all the way from Fairfax Station up Northern Virginia, DC area is what I tell them, to distribute school supplies. But it was a really touching moment for us to be able to do that. And I got to tell you, you have not lived until you get the opportunity to spend someone else's money to help somebody else out. Is one of the most gratifying feelings in the world. I've been privileged to do that. And I hope to be able to encourage others to help out because it is a really unbelievable feeling to be able to walk into Walmart and buy 400 glue sticks and then turn around and give those glue sticks out to little kids who are in need of school supplies. So this is the other part of the trip that we do when we go down there. We take one day and we don't work. We actually do the school supply distribution. We did it at 2 schools this year because there was another school that was in need as well. And our loose school supplies, actually, we did not donate to school this year. We left them at Grace House for them to distribute to the kids from Eastern Kentucky who were coming across the border and being enrolled in school and knew that one of the destination points for when they came to Virginia was a Grace House where they could get school supplies to be able to have that opportunity to learn at the same pace that the other kids in the class did. So move on to more recent activity, the pop-up pantry, which I'm sure you all have heard plenty about. This was an idea, and I won't repeat everything that was mentioned this morning by Reverend Susan, but it was an idea about a year ago that came about from a meeting with the principal at Holly Elementary, and looking at doing a food pantry, but putting a spin on it to say the people that we're going to serve don't have the ability to get in a car because they don't have a vehicle to come up to our church to get food that we need. Why can't we go across the berm and go to them? So that's where I started with mobile food pantry, and Reverend Susan said, I think pop-up food pantry sounds more enticing. I said, that's fine. So we had some fun with the name, but the idea was we could literally show up anywhere. And this is a transportable ministry that if we found that there was a need somewhere else in the area, we can do the same thing. We just move. So we take the food to the people. We don't rely on the people coming to us. So a little different spin on a food pantry. A lot of churches, a lot of organizations have food pantries where people will show up and they might get the opportunity to shop with using air quotes, shop for food, or have somebody pull up and put the food in the back of their trunk. We take the food to them. So the committee spent about a year, almost a year, working at this coming up with a solution for how we were going to execute this. And the first thing we did is we had to figure out what we were going to put in the boxes. It took some work, but we settled on this list, and it's actually being refined as I present this. But this is what we did yesterday. So every family, I should say, received 2 boxes. One was perishables and one was non-perishables. In the perishables box, there was milk and eggs. And in the non-perishable box, there was everything else listed on here. The idea behind this was it would provide a couple of meals and food for a family of 4 for at least a week and a half, give them an opportunity to put the money that they have towards keeping the electricity on, possibly paying the rent, or in some cases, providing food to a family that has no food. One of the families that we served yesterday, the real hardship case, not that they're all like this, but the real hardship case was the woman has 2 elementary school daughters, and she has difficult time keeping a job for reasons, some of which are outside of her own. She had $20 in her checking account. She was able to buy 1 rotisserie chicken for the 3 of them to last for 4 days. So stories like that, if it doesn't break your heart, we can have a separate talk. But that's the real motivation behind doing something like this. So this is what the contents were of the 2 boxes that we delivered. We delivered 20 of these yesterday, looking at our budget for the next 6 months to put together this pop-up pantry. We settled on these items, and like I said, we're already looking at refining it a little bit because we learned a lot yesterday in our first opportunity at doing this, to what works and what doesn't, and just from a management perspective for the church, how to get the most for what we're doing to those in need.
Mark, what does
Yes.
that mean? Boxes, 1 medium and 1 banker. What does that
I'm
mean?
sorry. So that was part of my budget for each box. So the boxes are we had 1 medium-sized box and 1 banker box, and I just had that in the list. And those were the tools that we used to carry the items. We didn't actually give those away, flat boxes. That's what we carried. We put all the food in. I should have edited my spreadsheet before I put a picture in there.
So Mark, based on your comments, you're refining the types of foods that will be given away, or are you
Yes.
refining the process of how you administer it?
So 2 things. One, looking at removing the canned tuna from the list and actually putting ground beef in, because one of the things that I've come to learn is that the majority of the people that we're serving do not get food stamps because they can't, because they're not here legally. So they're not afforded the opportunity to get the same services from the state or federally that others can. If they do get the opportunity to get meat, oftentimes it's already expired and they just won't eat it. So looking to pull the canned tuna out and putting ground beef in, and then also looking to remove the eggs and the milk, because that's stuff that they can get other places. It makes it a little bit easier logistically for us, because we're not building 2 different boxes. But taking a step farther, we're actually going to move to putting it in bags, paper bags with handles. One of the things we quickly realized yesterday when delivering was the preponderance of people who came out were women who these box was heavy for. One woman actually carried it back on her head, which really kind of caught us all off guard. But others really struggled. They had kids with them that were all young, and they were not able to help. So I thought, well, what if we put it in paper bags? And each of the kids could carry a bag, and we could take that one box and put it in 4 paper bags instead. So kind of playing around with how we would deliver the food, but then also making sure that we can get them what might be more helpful. So instead of canned tuna, it would be ground beef, and the budget would come out actually the same or a little bit less.
Great.
And the ground beef would be frozen.
Yes, and the ground beef would be frozen.
Okay.
Thank you, Marguerite. Yep. So this is our mission outreach room. I'm sure you're all scratching your head thinking, well, Mark, I didn't know we had a mission and outreach room. Well, we do. It's downstairs. It used to be called the nursery, but we've repurposed it. And this was our setup Friday night. So this was the room full of all of the food that we had purchased for the purposes of this first run at the pop-up pantry. Harry Johnson was outstanding in his logistical layout of the room. You can see, and with the help of Heidi, getting the laminated signs. Again, I go back to, this is a team sport. This is not one person doing this. Getting everything laid out so that anybody on the committee who had bought something could show up and know where to put their food and get on their way. They wouldn't have to ask a bunch of questions or just lay it on the floor. Because one of the other things we need to be able to show as a church is that in our experience doing this work, we're able to take care of the food the right way. So we're going to keep the food off the floor, away from the walls, and turn it quickly so that nothing spoils. Because eventually when we move to partnering with somebody like the USDA to get the food donated and we're not going out and buying it ourselves, they're under pretty strict guidelines on how food is handled, stored, and distributed. So again, this is our first pass at it. We're continuing to learn, but this was the room. Really, really exciting to see this all laid out Friday night after a year of thinking how would this come to fruition. We actually got there. So this was us putting together the boxes Friday night. So we went around and made sure that each box had the same amount of everything. There's small Post-its on the tables. That was Reverend Guillaume's assurance to make sure that everybody knew, hey, grab 2 pastas, but only grab 1 thing of beans as you went around, because you can kind of get wrapped up in it, and before you know it, 1 box only has potatoes in it and doesn't have any cereal or onions. So, but this was us loading all the boxes Friday night, making sure that they were all uniform in their contents. So one of the challenges was, how do we get all these boxes delivered down to Hagel Circle? And on Tuesday night, I was down at the church with Harry, and Harry said, Mark, what's your plan? I said, oh, I've got a parishioner, Tim Ashmore, has offered his pickup truck, and I think we're going to be fine with that. He said, great, what are you going to do if it rains? And I looked at him, I said, well, Harry, it's not supposed to rain. Well, I hadn't been watching the news, and a hurricane coming, or tropical storm coming north. And I got home and I opened my app and I went, wow, look at that. It's supposed to pour rain from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. So got up the next morning and went on uhaul.com and rented a U-Haul truck, a 10-foot U-Haul truck. And we were able to get all 20 boxes into the truck, both the medium box and the banker's box. You can see the white boxes on the right. That's what had the non-perishables. That has eggs and milk in it. We were able to get it all in the truck with no issue, and able to keep everything dry and get it delivered down to Hagel Circle. So that was the truck full.
Mark,
Yeah.
I want to point out that you didn't say, what you said was, it won't rain.
Right. Thank you.
Thank goodness
Thank you.
Harry was watching the news.
That's right. That's right. So I keep saying the word Hagel Circle, and I don't know that it resonates with everybody. And even Harry yesterday, when he and I were driving down in the truck, he said, Mark, where are we going? Hey, Holly Elementary is back the other way. I said, yeah, but this is where Hagel Circle is. So you can see relative to where Holly Elementary is, where Hagel Circle is. It's actually on the other side of 95. It's in Lorton. So It's a couple of miles away. All the kids are bused from Hagel Circle up to Holly Elementary, but that's how they've got everything district out so that. But I just want to give people a context for where we were going. The elementary school is actually in Fairfax Station, so it is associated with the same zip code that our church is. However, the people who live in Hagel Circle are farther east and a little bit south from where, and it is Lorton where they come from. Well, I've been asking all along for questions, but I'll go ahead and open it now. If I missed anything or there's something that you'd really want to know, like I said, I could talk about this until everybody finally dropped off Zoom or their batteries in their computers died. So I don't want to keep you all day, but I do want to make sure that people have questions. Before any questions, I will just say, I started this off by saying that mission outreach at St. Peter's is a team sport. I hope you were able to see through the photographs and the descriptions that I gave that this wasn't one person. This isn't a small group of 2 or 3 people. This is a parish effort. So if you feel called in any way through time, talent, or treasure to support mission and outreach, we will use you. And I say that with a smile on my face. And you will notice a difference in how you walk and how you talk after you have the opportunity to help other people. So with that, any questions anybody has?
If you want to stop sharing screen too, we could
Yep.
see each other too. There we
Thank
are.
you.
Mark, how is the school? You're working through the ESOL teachers and the social workers at the school.
Mhm.
Does the principal know about this, and what was her reaction to it?
The principal does know. She was so earlier this week, I printed up flyers for Liz to take in. So that's the inside hook that we have. St. Peter's has with Holly Elementary is Liz is the social worker for that school. She took the flyers in that did the what, where, when, why, and the location, so that the teachers and the ESOL teacher and the principal all had the opportunity to put these flyers into kids' backpacks to make sure their parents knew to come out yesterday. So the principal was blown away that St. Peter's continues to come up with creative ways to help out their school in ways that other organizations might not even think of. Again, this whole idea stemmed from a conversation where the principal was giving us a tour of the school, and she shared that her biggest challenge was educating kids who are hungry, and how hungry kids don't learn at the same pace. And I'm sure everyone on this call can attest to that. If you've been working a long day and you work through lunch and it gets to be about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and your boss or colleague starts asking you questions, your head's not really clear. And you're not putting your best foot forward at your job. Well, that's what these kids' lives are like for a full day. I don't want to repeat elementary school, nor would I ever want to repeat elementary school in a situation where I had food insecurity.
Yeah.
And that's at the root, that's what St. Peter's in the Woods is addressing, both from the pop-up pantry perspective and also the weekend meal kit, which is something else that we've committed to for the year. This is a small bundle of food that affords these same children the opportunity to have some breakfast, lunch, and dinner both Saturday and Sunday, because during the week, breakfast and lunch are free or reduced by the school. So, Reverend Susan, the principal Carrie down there is just, she gets to the point of being speechless, honestly, at what we do, and all she can say is thank you.
Carol.
I have a question about the number of people you served.
Mhm.
You did 20,
Yes.
but is there a need for more than that in the community? And how does this relate to your 20 boxes versus a greater need, maybe?
Well, so that's a good question. We went yesterday with with open hearts and curiosity to what we were going to encounter. And we had done the best we could to communicate out what we had, what we were bringing. We did put on there limited quantities available, which is one of the reasons I made sure to have somebody with a collar there, because I thought that would be the great equalizer. But we still did have people who were hesitant to show up. My gut says that next month, we're not going to have any hesitation with people showing up. And in fact, they're going to tell their friends. So the committee is already starting to discuss how can we grow it from 20 to greater than 20. And Linda Bellotti was, God bless her, she was pushing hard. She wanted to do 50, or she wanted to do 60 boxes or 40 boxes. She just kept pushing to increase. And I said, I want to get there with you, because I really believe the need is there. But we don't know what we don't know right now. Carol, I do think that next month we're going to have more than 20 people show up. My hope yesterday was that we would have 15 families show up, not 5 and not 35, because I didn't want any drama in the parking lot with, why don't you have anything left? But I want to make sure that we had something to give everybody. I think word is going to spread. So behind the scenes yesterday, we actually had, I was texting with my wife, who was on the phone with the ESOL teacher, who was texting all the families to let them know where in the parking lot we were. So some families actually sat in their cars for about 15 minutes watching us before they felt comfortable showing up. I don't think we're going to have that problem next month. So I'm already thinking ahead to say 20 isn't a realistic number. I know the number is greater than 20. I just don't know what we will be able to manage as a church, quite honestly.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you.
We have a comment in the chat from Reverend G. The person with the collar forgot the gift card. So, Mark, so the school itself, do you know how many families are eligible for the breakfast program? So we would have an idea of like how many families we might be trying to address.
I don't know that. I can find that out.
And I say family because you might have multiple siblings in one family, right?
You definitely have multiple siblings. I know a little bit of context. So on the same subject of families in need, the weekend meal kits that we provide, each year, my wife will start to build a list. And in September, she'll have 20 kids on that list. And now that's multiple kids from one family, but it's 20 kids. And by March, end of March, April, she'll have 60 on the list. This year, she started out September with 62 on the list. So the need is overwhelming, but that's a great question to say, how many families are down there, to kind of look at the scope of how big this could get. That's a great question. I've got it noted here and I will find that out.
This really still is very much in the process. Because to be honest, this is an expensive endeavor at this point because we don't have any connections with the larger food banks.
Yep.
So it's experimental in terms of cost. It's experimental in how much can we physically handle, particularly we are still a small church. Even with the expansion, it's going to be small. The criteria to be able to be supplied by the food banks are very strict. That's why I had to do the research on that. They're very strict, and we can't fudge it because they do come and inspect the facility. So while the need is great, we have to be sure that we're doing it properly. I think that we could probably feed at least half of the school and beyond, but we have to be very careful with our process.
Right.
And it's an interesting endeavor. It breaks your heart to know that there are people that are hungry, but we're doing the best we can. One thing I want to point out, because Mark hasn't mentioned it, we do very much want to get to a point where we can involve physically, not only monetarily, but physically more people.
Absolutely.
But at this point, what we're looking at with involving the greater community is with the weekend packages. Mark's idea was, what is it, once a Friday or some day during the week,
Mhm.
having 4 people get together and prepare the food pack, the weekend packages, because we know that St. Peter's in the Woods has a great heart and everybody wants to help. But
Right.
that's the food part that we're looking at the greater population handling
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Marguerite. And that reminds me, so the long-term plan for the pop-up pantry is not that St. Peter's in the Woods will continue to sustain financially the purchasing of all this food. In our research as a committee, we determined that food pantries are about 80% of the food that they distribute is actually donated to them. So that's where we would like to get, so that we're purchasing only 20%. Currently, we are purchasing 100% due to the generosity of St. Peter's in the Woods and a grant from the Matthew 25 Foundation. But long term, that's not sustainable, and that's not, quite honestly, that's not what we're set out to do. If we're able to show, one of the challenges was what we ran into this year was we tried to sign up, and one of the organizations said, "Great, show us the experience that you have." Well, we don't have any experience. Well, until you show us experience, and it's like, if you rewind the clocks to your first job, how do you get experience if they don't hire you? So this is our way to show for at least 6 months that we've got experience. We do have dedicated space, so that eventually we can have organizations who are receiving this food on a much greater scale donating to us, and then we're distributing it out locally. And then the number can skyrocket in a hurry, Ellen, to answer your question, to the groups that we can support. But right now it's kind of in a pilot phase. Let's see how this works. Let's see if it's doable for this little church that can, and it is. But word is going to spread quickly, especially in the Hispanic community. They do not mess around with helping each other out. We had people out there who were helping each other because they weren't able to carry the food, or one family wasn't home and the neighbor knew that they were in need. So it's going to magnify to next month to be something larger. I just don't know how big.
And you reminded me, a shout out to Chris Camillo, who speaks Spanish,
Yes.
because we do need somebody who speaks decent Spanish there, friendly. I had to explain, now, what is St. Peter's in the Woods? What is this place? So she really was.
Yep.
That's definitely a necessary member of the team.
It also just added a level of comfort.
Having a woman.
Yeah, having someone show up who speaks the language of the people who are receiving the boxes. It changes the conversation, no pun intended, dramatically in our favor.
That brings to mind, when you were there, do you have like any posters or photographs of the church or anything like that they could see visually that were affiliated, with the church and not,
Nope. I guess in a perfect world, we would have something that we could hang off the side of a truck to say St. Peter's in the Woods pop-up food pantry.
Yeah.
That's on the list. Right now, I kid you not, the ESOL teacher was showing pictures to all of the families and all the kids of what a U-Haul truck looked like. So they knew what a U-Haul truck was in their neighborhood, and that's where they went. Because there wasn't a dedicated space that we could go. We just kind of found the first parking space. They recognized the truck from the pictures that they had received, and they came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a work in progress, and clearly we have opportunity to improve.
Sure. I was thinking that way, that something could even be written in Spanish that they could see, and then having the pictures of the church.
This is great stuff. Thank you all so much.
Harry wanted me to point out, 'cause he's way in the back, that there was another U-Haul truck on the street,
Ah,
which did lead to a little confusion. Maybe
Yeah.
we need
Yep.
something on our U-Haul.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we could repurpose one of the old Laundry Love signs. We used to have something that we put
Right.
out in front of the laundromat
Right.
with our logo and stuff. But yeah, it's so wonderful and so exciting and inspiring and just
And I
great.
know Heidi loves making banners, so
Yeah,
we
she's
could
on
get
it.
we could get another banner made to hang on the side of the truck that said St. Peter's in the Woods pop-up pantry.
Yeah,
That would be awesome
mhm.
with the Episcopal Church logo there.
yeah,
And our logo. That would be huge.
yeah.
It took about 50 minutes. I didn't share that. It took about 50 minutes for us once we got parked to distribute everything. So we were not there for a very long time. And I imagine next month it'll go a little bit quicker because people will not be as hesitant to come out.
Mhm.
However, the trade-off will be there will probably be more than 20 families who will show up next month.
Well, this is a fantastic initiative. I just finished reading Viola Davis, the actress, her biography called Finding Me. And a huge thread through that book is the fact that she and her siblings went to bed almost every night starving,
Mhm.
even though they were so, tied to wanting their education. And reading that book will really give you an idea of what it's like on the other side.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a fantastic initiative. So,
Yeah.
well, we have about 4 minutes left. So if you have not gotten your question in for Mark or comment, now is the time.
All right, does Reverend G want to say anything? He's sort of blacked out there, but if you're here, we can't see you, Reverend G.
I mean, I was on my way from St. Albans, and I'm home, but I was just listening, and didn't want to miss this great work that is being done, and I wanted to hear from Mark, but just listening. And thank you so much, everyone.
Well, Mark, do you have any wrap-up words you'd like to share?
I'll just reiterate that if you feel called to support mission outreach, we will find an opportunity to plug you in.
Yeah.
Mark, for anyone who sees this later, how do they get in touch with you directly?
So email is Mark Duvall, MarkDevoll @gmail.com, or you can call the church. They know who I am, where I live, and all the numbers to reach me by.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your continued leadership in this particular mission, Mark.
It's my pleasure.
All right. So Reverend Susan, next week is the blessing of the pets. So we will
Yeah.
not be having an adult forum. So bring your pet of any stripe to church next week. And then the following week, which puts us, I'm losing my dates. I know we're in October, right?
The 16th,
Yeah, which puts us at the 16th. And the topic will be,
the building committee will be providing an update, and we will do that. We might invite people to stay after the 10 o'clock who are in person, and we could do a hybrid. So it might start at 11 instead of 12. If that would work for folks who generally attend, just trying to offer the opportunity for people to be in person as well as online. So we're working out the technology to support that.
if it gives an opportunity for some folks to get back to their home, I guess.
Yeah, that would be the tricky part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe we'd start at 11:15, so you'd have to drive fast. You get your coffee to go. But yeah, that was the thinking.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you all so much, and especially Mark again for his presentation and everyone for participating.
Yeah.
So, we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so
All
much.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
Ellen.
week.
Thanks,
you all.
Barry.
All right.
Mark, thanks. Marguerite and Harry, great team. And Reverend G. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.